Good morning. Sorry about that. Didn't realize I was that close to the mic. My name is Derek Lackey. I'm the chairman of the Response Marketing Association, and we'd like to welcome you all. I know you've all had a long week, and we'll strive to make this as interesting and engaging as we can. We're here to talk about really what's kind of going on now and maybe for the next 12 months in email marketing and the critical issues that we need to look at. So couple of housekeeping things. There will be coffee and pop and tea and all that served all day long. So just help yourself whenever you want. And there will be lunch served. And I think that's it. I'd like to introduce Matt Vernhout. Matt is going to be our keynote speaker, and Matt is our partner in putting this show on. So Matt has brought the email world to the Response Marketing Association, and the association literally exists to help marketers be better marketers. And we zero in on the response type tactics, like email marketing is one of our primary ones. So we paid a lot of attention to it, and over to you, Matt.
Thanks everyone for being here today. This event means a lot to me. So glad you're all here. I definitely want to thank our sponsors. First off, we can't do any event without our sponsors. Omnibury, Redsift, Newport Thompson, Leslieville Digital, who helped us with a lot of our graphics for promotions, Email Karma. And like I said, without the Response Marketing Association, this event doesn't happen. They really put in a lot of the time, a lot of the effort to make sure that we can bring this event to the audience. For everyone who traveled internationally, I know many of you were here already for an event, but thank you for sticking around and staying to participate. Thanks everyone for coming. I want to actually thank Dave, who's outside, for being part of the planning committee and making sure that everything flows. And then obviously thank you to the staff and facilities teams that are going to help us get the event managed and executed today. So I want to talk about the human element of email. All we hear these days is AI, right? AI is going to take your job as a marketer. AI is going to take your job as a graphic designer. AI is going to take your job doing everything, right? But what can we do to ensure that we're still building trust and authenticity into email? So we're going to start, I always like big numbers. 319 billion emails are sent and received every day. Not all of those make it to the inbox. As a deliverability professional, there is a large number of messages that get blocked. But how do you get your message to resonate with your consumer? How do you get your message to be the one your consumers want to engage with over your competitors? So trust, like all things when you're working with people, right? And this is, I think, the key message I want to talk about today is email from a company to a recipient is a person, right? You need to talk to them like people. When you meet people in person, if the first thing they say to you is buy my stuff, and the next thing they say to you is buy more stuff, and the next thing they say is buy more stuff, that's not really a relationship that you're building with people, right? Email is a two-way communication channel. So when you see things like no reply, that tells your consumer you're not interested in hearing from you. So think about different ways that you can engage with your consumer and break through the noise and build the trust and build the things that those consumers want to say, that's the brand I want to continue to do business with. So why does it matter? Why does authenticity matter? Why does it matter to your consumers? First off, people understand when you're being authentic. When your brand has a message, when your brand has something that aligns with their individual personalities, their goals and their ambitions in life. People understand that. Then they look at trust, right? How easy is it to break someone's trust? It's way easier to violate someone's trust than it is to build that trust, right? You always hear the saying, 9 out of 10 times you're going to hear about the complaint. You're never going to hear the good things. Those are much more frequent because people don't say a lot of times, that's a great email. Right? They just look at it and say, yeah, I clicked the link. That's them telling you it's a great email. If they ignore your email, it wasn't great to them. The subject line didn't engage. The content wasn't the right content. Those engagements with your consumers, those are those points where your consumer is saying, yes, this was the content that was right for me today. I mean, we've been saying right content, right message, right time, but a lot of that isn't even, like, it is important. But if you have the trust of your consumer and the relationship with your consumer, they're going to give you a significantly larger amount of leeway when it comes to that time you send them the message that isn't relevant. But if you send them nothing but irrelevant messages, what happens? Report spam, report unsubscribe, really off topic. Maybe someone will report you as phishing because they think that's going to get more attention, whether they're just trying to get the message out of their inbox or not. So, where do we get trust? Where do we get authenticity? Where do we get, and authenticity means a few things in the world of email, right? There's authenticating your mail, SPF, DK, DMARC, saying this message was sent by my brand, my domain, my network. We approved the content, we approved the message. But there's that other piece where consumers are basically looking to say, do I want to continue working with you or your competitor? There is that authentic voice that your brand needs to have. And a lot of times those voices are disjointed when it comes to how you're talking on social media, how you're talking on email, what your website says. There's not a consistent voice, and that causes consumer confusion as well. A stat recently, Litmus came out and said 69% of consumers are more likely to open emails from brands they trust, right? What are you doing to earn that trust? Make sure you're talking to them in that way that they're going to continue to trust your brand and your messaging. HubSpot says 91% of people will unsubscribe from email they no longer trust. Well, what breaks trust? Data breach, ignoring preferences, over mailing. All of these things are things that are going to abuse your consumer's trust and cause these types of responses. How many marketers in the room are afraid of unsubscribes? A couple. Okay. Eric, you're afraid of everything. But the point being, right, unsubscribes are healthy. They're a great way for your brand to stay trustworthy. If a consumer says, I'd like to stop receiving your mail, it doesn't mean they want to stop shopping with you. It doesn't mean they want to stop engaging with your brand. Sorry, my cup won't fall apart here. I don't know why. But anyways, taking the time to continue to get that trust every single time you're working with consumers, sending them the messages they want, listening to their preferences. These are the things that consumers are going to say, I want to continue to engage. So I mentioned this, authenticity, authentication, they go really well together. This is probably a series of words that you've heard a lot in the last year, right? Last year, Google and Yahoo in October said, you need to do these things, or we may no longer accept your mail. And in February, they made some significant changes to their inbound processing for brands that were doing these things. The most recent one, Bimmy, if you haven't done that yet, look into it. It's fantastic. I'm totally biased being on the Bimmy working group. I will admit that. If you ever write to us, I will probably be the person that answers you. There are lots of great experts in the room as well on Bimmy. If you have further questions around that. What that is, it basically puts your email logo next to your name when your consumer opens that message. So there was a study done by Verizon, now Yahoo, in 2019, when they put side-by-side images of an email inbox with logo, no logo, 10% more people engaged with the logo-driven email. So logos in your email actually do have some influence on your customer engagement. We've now seen also the adoption of blue checkmark, right? Everyone wants the verification blue checkmark. That's coming as well to several mailbox providers. You're going to see it for verified messages using Bimmy at Google. You're going to see it at Yahoo. And most recently I saw Google is actually looking at putting it in search results. I don't think that's Bimmy related, but Google is actually trying to find ways to help consumers understand what's a trustworthy site, versus what's not a trustworthy site.
And Apple has the check mark.
And Apple has the check mark too. Thank you, Seth. So these are the things that are coming, and it's because we're enabling technologies like this that allow your brand to protect itself. I really suggest, if there's questions on these, say that the ISP panel that's coming up after the break, there's going to be a lot of great experts there talking about that. Red Sift, who's in the room as well, great expert. They were, like I said, one of our sponsors. So absolutely make sure you talk to them if you're looking for any help with technologies like this. So what do we do to continue to earn subscriber trust, right? Subscribers are busy. How many people get more than 50 commercial email a day, right? How many of them do you engage with a day? 2, 3, 4 maybe, right? Because you engage with the ones that you have the most trust and the most interest, the ones that are messaging to you personally, right? So these are the types of things that you need to understand when you're working with your consumers. Are you worth the time for them? I don't know, did anyone not watch Ted Lasso, right? The goldfish, 8 seconds of attention, right? That's one of the things. You make a bad play, 8 seconds of attention, you move on. Well, consumers are going to do the same thing. They look at your subject line and say, not today, and move on. So the CMO Council put out a stat. 47% of consumers disengage when they don't feel the brand is representing its values, right? I said this earlier. That's not just a statement of, I like your products, but it's, I like your values, right? It could be, are you environmentally conscious? Are you socially conscious? You donate to certain causes that resonate with people. These are the things that, as a brand, aren't your marketing efforts, but they're the things your consumers look for to say, I want to continue to support your business so that you can continue to do these things. There are lots of programs and lots of companies that do sort of 10% time or donation, 1% donations. Those are the things consumers pay attention to outside of the messaging and the marketing you're selling them. So be authentic to your brand. If you're taking initiatives like those and doing those types of things, talk to your consumers about them. They want to hear about the good things your brands are doing when they're out in the world and supporting your business. But there's a cost to doing bad things as well, right? Too many irrelevant messages, too many messages in the inbox, ignoring my request to send less frequently, send not at all, change the way that you're messaging to me, right? Preference centers are an amazing thing, but also at the same time, if you're afraid of the unsubscribe, put an optional survey at the bottom of your unsubscribe, right? And then listen to that feedback and make changes. If you're getting unsubscribes and 80% of the answers are you send too frequently, guess what? You're abusing your consumer's inbox and you need to slow down and send different messaging. Or talk about, those consumers that really engage, keep them on the same cadence. Consumers that engage less, send to them less. That's what they're trying to tell you. 43% of consumers report spam because they don't find your content relevant. That is the value exchange for your email address when a consumer subscribes. They want relevant content. If you tell them you're going to send them a weekly newsletter and then send them 5 different daily newsletters that each run once a week, guess what? You violated their trust. They're no longer going to say, keep sending me email. Data breaches are also a huge violation of trust. 68% of breaches involve human error. This is where we continue to come back with, how do we, as brands, protect our consumer data so that our consumers are trusting us to continue to manage it, right? There's nothing faster in a way to lose a consumer than have a data breach. So definitely, it's not necessarily marketing related, the data breach, but it is a consumer trust thing. There are more brands now than ever getting breached. I receive probably 1 to 2 breach notifications every 6 weeks. It's crazy the number of brands that are deep, right? These are the things that we need to continue to focus on as companies, as individuals. It's everyone's responsibility to protect everyone else. It's the community vaccine, if you will. So how do you do that? we're going to talk about first-party data, right? A lot of people talk about zero-party. I don't believe in zero-party data. Zero-party data is just a subset of first-party data. You're collecting it. It's yours. There's no third parties involved. Zero-party data is a fantastic idea to say your consumer gave it to you, but most first-party data is your consumer gave it to you, and maybe you inferred a little bit beyond that. It's still first-party. So focus on the data you collect. There are lots of examples of bad third-party data append, bad third-party, injection of data. This is becoming a significant problem for a lot of brands when it comes to outreach, cold email, right? Who's tired of getting cold email? Everybody in the room, exactly. So, and the reason is because it's messages that are violating the trust of your inbox. They're being sent. They're irrelevant. They're unsolicited. These are the things that cause people to say, I'm not going to work with you. I'm not interested. There is a big difference, in my opinion, between do you need help with your SEO email, which I don't, to do you want to be on my podcast and talk about marketing? One is highly relevant, still unsolicited, but highly relevant compared to the other. Which one do you think I'm going to potentially respond to?
Yes, you're point.
Basil, of course, but only if you're sending. Consumers in a significant number want to feel that a brand provides important updates, products, and services to the things that they need in life. If you look at your program, are you fulfilling that when you're talking to your consumers? So I know I touched on this briefly already when it comes to trust and when it comes to your brand. I mentioned this already, the 2021 test, but a little bit of recognition goes a long way. I am much more likely to recognize a brand logo, and I'm sure most of you are as well, over an email address, over a person's name, right? I get asked this question all the time. What should my display look like in an email? Should I send email as Matt Vernhout on behalf of the Response Marketing Association? Should it come from Derek Lackey? Should it come from someone else in the room? Or should it come from the Response Marketing Association? Should it come from Email Karma? Should it come from Email Indie? Right? What are your consumers going to recognize? A lot of political parties send from individuals. I can tell you, I probably know 3 to 4 people that send me email with political messaging, because those are the members of parliament that are relevant to me. But when I get a member of parliament emails me from Kamloops, I have no idea who they are because they're on the other side of the country. There's a recognition problem. But if it came with their logo next to it, I'd be able to make the association of which brand is sending me that message. So understand the visualization of your content and your brand carries a lot of weight when it comes to how consumers are engaging with your messaging. So there was a DMA study in 2021. 70% of consumers will will engage with brands where they recognize the imagery in the brand, right? And that includes your header, includes your email name, it includes maybe your logo you're putting in. So these are the types of things that recognize with consumers, resonate with consumers. Apologies. So I love this quote, never stop dating your spouse. In this case, I'm going to say never stop dating your customer. And what does this mean for most people? It means just because you're married doesn't mean you don't take your spouse out on dates. Doesn't mean you don't buy them random gifts. Doesn't mean you don't treat them like you did when you were courting them to get, into that relationship. It's the same with your customer. If you stop caring about your customer, they're going to stop caring about you. So take that time to carry that relationship forward. Take that time to build that relationship with your customer every single message that you're sending them. So how do you do that, right? Consistent tone, consistent tone and style, personalize the message, but don't over-personalize the message. You can get really creepy when it comes to over-personalizing messages as well. You get far too targeted and consumers don't like being that specific, right? People always reference that Target pregnancy. If you don't know that one, Target has a loyalty program. They know the 8 products that women buy when they become pregnant. And when your shifting pattern, your shopping patterns change and you start buying those products, they market to you differently. The challenge is it can be really creepy for people that don't understand the messaging if you're blatantly obvious about it. So think about that. Personalize, but don't over personalize. You might be creeping people out. And if you tell someone you're going to mail to them once a week, mail to them once a week. Right? If you're going to change that, be open about it. That's the whole point of communication. Email is designed to be a communication channel, back and forth. There is a brand here in Toronto, travel brand, that wasn't reading any responses that they received when it came to email. They ignored all replies. And one day, one of their teams said, we should look and see what's in the inbox. They made almost 30% more revenue after they started reading replies because people have questions about my trip, about this. I need to make a change. I want to upgrade. And they just ignored all that. They changed it and all of a sudden found revenue. Are you leaving money on the table because you have a no reply? Maybe. Make sure you're paying attention to those types of things. Because consumers understand when email comes in, there's a reply button. They're going to ask you questions. So it's easy to get it wrong and very hard to get it right. Building trust takes time. Ruining trust takes a minute. So make sure that you are sending relevant content. Make sure you are you're courting your customer all the time. I don't mean it has to be every message, but it has to be a continual relationship that you have with your customer, where you're always making an effort, just like you do in your own personal relationships. And honestly, it is so much easier for a consumer to report a message as spam than it is to unsubscribe sometimes, right? And if there's anyone in the room that probably knows more about this than I do, it's probably Trevor from the Privacy Commission, right? They've done a lot of studies around consumers not honoring unsubscribes, multi-step unsubscribes. And the CRTC has been involved in those things as well when it comes to how hard are you making it for consumers to update their preferences. Trevor's been talking about dark patterns today, I think, or Derek's been talking about dark patterns. But I think there's a lot of really cool things that we're going to see, and you might actually look at them and say, wow, cool, and then realize, oh, so creepy. So make sure that you're not being that boring. So, always think of every engagement on how you're building this. And this is just to sort of tie everything back in. This is how we humanize email, right? It's not so much using AI content to generate stuff. It's not so much using AI generated images or AI to build it. It's still understanding that AI needs to send the messages that are relevant to your consumer, that are going to be helpful to them, that are going to be resonating in a way that they want to continue a relationship with your brand. I always like this analogy, like inboxes are like nightclubs. Your consumers are bouncers, right? You get invited in as long as you're well behaved. As long as you're no longer well behaved, they don't want you in the club anymore, right? That's one of those things you need to pay attention to. Are you being well behaved and invited in?